But first, the left's love affair with the nation's deadliest criminal gang continues tonight. The howls of outrage reverberating. President Trump dared criticize MS-13 by calling them animals. Watch.
He basically seems to assume that everybody is part of MS-13. Very strange to hear the President of the United States speak in such dehumanizing terms.
Clearly, the president wants a war against Latinos. You might make that distinction between members of MS-13 and the rest of the Latino community and the rest of the immigrant community. I assure you that most of Americans don't make that distinction when he says we're animals.
When he says we're animals. Things are moving fast in this country. By 2020, defending Central American street gangs will likely be a key plank in the Democratic platform. It's close now. You can see it. Maybe Bernie Sanders will feel the burn a little more literally. Kamala Harris's campaign will certainly be stronger together with the added muscle of Guatemalan street gangs. Don't laugh. It's actually more plausible than you'd think it is. Don't believe us? Here's what CNN contributor Ana Navarro said this Wednesday about Trump's animal remark. Quote, Trump is in very bad company. Nazis referred to Jews as rats. Slave owners viewed slaves as subhuman animals. Now, here's what Navarro herself had to say about Trump just 2 years ago. Quote, should Trump drop out of the race? Yes, he should drop out of the human race. He's an animal. Apologies to animals. Apparently, Donald Trump can be dehumanized, and that's fine. MS-13, though, a gang that butchers high schoolers with machetes, that's too far. But on the left, that's exactly the state of play as of this evening. MS-13 runs drugs, of course. It commits murders, and it terrorizes entire immigrant communities. But they don't ask questions about diversity, so they're okay. Questioning diversity is the highest crime you can commit, according to the left. Questioning diversity imperils their entire worldview. It suggests that people are not interchangeable, and the particular people who inhabit a particular country matter. That's unacceptable, far more unacceptable than, say, murdering a teenager in Long Island. That doesn't even warrant a serious attempt at deportation. Joining us tonight is Leslie Marshall. She's a progressive radio show host and a keen observer of the Democratic Party. Leslie, good to see you.
Good to see you, Tucker.
So you're seeing all the leaders of the Democratic Party, Schumer, Pelosi, its surrogates, the entire American news media virtually, singing from the same song sheet. This is a coordinated storyline. Who thought of this? What consultant convinced Democrats running in defense of MS-13 was a good way to go into the midterms?
Well, first of all, I think it was very clear, quite frankly, and I know fellow Democrats get angry at me, that the president was answering a question that the sheriff posed regarding the gang members. The issue here, Tucker, is not support of gangs or gang members. I have an 11-year-old son. And as you know, MS-13 starts as young as 11 and goes up to 40. It's calling human beings animals. Now, wait a minute. I know when you look at what MS-13 does, it's hard to say, well, are they human beings? When you have an 11-year-old child who is fearful for their and their family's life in a very impoverished area, and you think, how can I protect myself? And you're offered protection by some of these older MS-13 gang members, regardless of the fact they're going to beat you to a pulp or perhaps even take your life in 13 seconds, a very slow 13 seconds. You look to them because you think, how can I be considered tough? How can I and my family not be bullied and be protected? I mean, look, you're right. I don't think those 11-year-old children, quite frankly, are animals, and I don't think we should refer to human beings, even if they're bad human beings, as animals.
Well, but look, people have all kinds of reasons for doing what they do, and sometimes it's understandable. But, I mean, people had reasons for becoming concentration camp guards. But if I called a concentration camp guard an animal, you would say, you know, he's not strictly speaking an animal, he's a human being, but I get it. He's horrible. Like, you're expressing your outrage at what he does. If I said that, no one would bat an eye. But that's because concentration camp guards aren't potential Democratic voters. I mean, this is really about winning a constituency, isn't it? This is a political decision Democrats have made. We're on the side of MS-13, not because we love murder. I'm not saying Democrats love murder. I don't think they do. But they don't want to alienate anybody on that side, including, I guess, MS-13 members themselves. I mean, let's be honest about what's happening.
I don't agree with you there, although we are certainly in an era where left or right, a lot of things come into the landscape and are argued for political gain, especially with midterm elections coming up. I don't think that's the point here at all, Tucker. I mean, you know that we liberals claim to be pacifist. We claim to care about everyone, and it is the terminology that is very unsettling to a lot of people in the Democratic. Yes, liberals are pacifist.
Liberals are pushing, I mean, you're watching liberals across the spectrum from, Nikki Haley to Chuck Schumer pushing for more war in Syria. They're bloodthirsty, actually.
When
There's
did
liberals.
Nikki Haley start wearing a Democratic cape? I must have missed that one.
And she started pushing for more pointless wars. But here's the point. If I came out and described a concentration camp guard as an animal, nobody would have a problem with it. I certainly wouldn't have a problem with that. You wouldn't. No normal person would have a problem with that. Normal people don't defend murderers, but the Democratic Party is defending MS-13. And I'm just making a political observation, which is that's not a wise strategy going into election because normal people aren't going to go for that, are they? Or maybe
Tucker,
they are.
I'm going to go back to your concentration camp argument, okay?
Yeah.
Being that I have one Jewish parent, I think you know, and being that I have relatives that did perish in concentration camps, there were a few types of guards in the camps, quite frankly. One would be fellow Jews who wanted to survive and have a lot of guilt, and there are many documentaries about that, too.
Okay.
There are many people that said they were just following orders. They were not referred to as animals, and quite frankly, many of them escaped any type of criminal
Look,
wrath.
I don't want to get off on a World War II tangent, and that was one of 100 examples. Jeffrey Dahmer, anybody who commits murder for the pleasure of committing it, I think it's fair to criticize in the harshest possible terms, and it would be surprising if an entire political party came to that person's aid and defense, as the Democrats now are to MS-13. And I'm just asking, whose idea was this? It's not happening accidentally when you have John Harwood from the New York Times and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi saying exactly the same thing. Somebody thought up this line. And I'm just wondering, do you think it's a smart thing to say?
I don't think anybody thought up the line. I think what happens, and is happening almost every day, is the president says something or tweets something, and then there's a reaction, and certainly there's a strong reaction on the left, and there's been a reaction in the Latino community because a lot of the headlines were that the president said this about all immigrants at first, and then when people read the transcript or they listened to the actual taping of what occurred in that meeting, then it became more clear that he was speaking about MS-13, and it was a response by the sheriff's question regarding MS-13. But you also have to remember, Tucker, some people that are in MS-13 in this country begging not to be deported aren't a part of the gang. They just can't get out because the only way out is to be killed.
But let me ask you this, and final question, but this is the deep irony undergirding all of this, which is MS-13 preys upon immigrants. I mean, who do you think their victims are? Overwhelmingly Honduran, Salvadoran immigrants, often illegal, by the way. So if Democrats say, we are the champions of immigrants, why are they defending people who prey upon immigrants? It doesn't make any sense.
I don't feel that Democrats are in any way defending murderers. I feel that Democrats are saying that the president's choice of words was not palatable for them, and that no human being, how terrible a human being they may be, should be called an animal, because an animal doesn't choose. They're part of the life cycle.
All the time. But hold on, let's be honest. They're holding the president to a different standard than they're holding MS-13. If you came out and said Trump is an animal, I don't think for a second Nancy Pelosi would give you a lecture about Christianity or whatever she was pretending to believe the other day, the spirit of God in every person. I mean, they wouldn't even notice it because they think Trump is an animal, right? But they're offended when you say that about a Salvadoran street gang? I mean, it's a sincere question.
Honestly, I'm not a fan of the president, but I would defend him if somebody called him an animal, because I don't think a human being should be called that. And a president should be at a higher standard
liberal.
than a gang.
Then I hope you will denounce that. I can't even remember her name, but that CNN contributor is always getting crazy on TV who called him an animal. Anyway, Leslie, thank you. It was great to see you.
Good to see you, Tucker.